Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. It's Tuesday night in the Prog seat. Welcome to another edition of the show. We've got a kind of combo A and B team here tonight because Mr. Anthony Ferraro had something come up last minute. So we've got our Mr. Rick LaBonte, who's filling in at the last minute, coming up with a list at the last minute. Gotta love people's dedication to this channel, to this show. So tonight it's all about we did about a month or so ago, a month and a half ago, we did our favorite guitar players that fall into the kind of prog fusion, prog metal realms. Today we're going to do keyboard players, right? There's a ton of great ones. So we picked our 5 favorites, which was not easy, as we were just talking before we went on the air. And and we got some honorable mentions, I think, because I know we all had a pretty extensive list. So we're going to try and narrow it down to 5 each, and then throw out some other guys that we love a lot. But feel free to say what you love about these dudes, and maybe a favorite album, whatever you want to do. We're going to go Chuck, Rick, George, and myself, and continue around till we get to number 1. So, Chuck, who you got for number 5?
Oh, man, my number 5 is the great Herbie Hancock. You can't go wrong with that guy, man. All his stuff that he did with Miles Davis and his jazz oriented stuff is just out of this world. But then when he got into the funky and jazz rock versions, so you think about all the great songs that he had. I named 3 songs that I love by him. Sleeping Giant off of his Crossings album in 1971, if I'm not mistaken. And then Sly from Headhunters and Butterfly from Thrust. These are all songs where he just slays. But he just doesn't go wrong with any of his compositions. But his work is just astounding, man. My number 5 is Herbie Hancock.
Great choice.
Great choice. He never ceases to amaze me.
Still doing it. Still going strong.
Yes, thank goodness. Yeah, knock on wood.
Yep. All right, Rick, what do you got?
Well, it is a difficult list, but I wanted to combine the blast of the past and a little bit of the 21st century music as well. I have to go with this gentleman who was part of this Swedish band from 1995 right up to 2015. He was spent a good 20 years of this band, and I'm talking about the Pharaoh Kings, and that's Tomas Boden. He's I can grab any CD. He definitely showed his work in every album he gets his hands on. And so because I haven't mentioned these albums in the past shows, I just raised them. But you could pick any of them, and he's brilliant. And right up to the last 2 albums he did not play. And still good. The Pharaoh Kings still can carry on and pass that torch on. But I really like his body of work. And I just think he's worth mentioning on this show for anybody who don't know who this man is. He's brilliant. He brings the old school stuff that we love near and dear about the 70s prog right to the modern age. I think he does it well. He fits the song with suit the song, or the epic, I should say. Because they always put out double albums almost. So he has a lot of work cut out for him. That's for sure. So that's my pick.
Yeah, there's little something missing from their music since he left the band. Something. And he's a really cool guy. I had the opportunity to hang out with him at the New Jersey Prog House. Do you remember that place, Chuck? Did you ever go to any of the shows there?
Never been to a show there, but I'm planning to go there hopefully this year. Hopefully.
Yeah, I only went once, and I saw the Pharaoh Kings there, and I got to interview and talk to him backstage, and he's a very cool guy.
Oh, man, I saw the Pharaoh Kings twice at the Bottom Line, and they were astounding. Very nice guys, too, very soft-spoken, and I got to speak to Tom as well. Very nice guy, man. You weren't kidding when you said he's a nice guy.
Yeah, yeah, he is. Cool.
He seemed very intelligent, and he have introduced some songs, and he seems like a guy I would love to pick my brain, with. He seems very deep, and yeah, it seems like that would be a great experience to have that opportunity. So you met everybody, Pete?
Yeah.
In that lineup? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I interviewed Royna at Nearfest, and then like a couple years later they played at the New Jersey Prog House, and I saw them all there, but I interviewed Tomas, so yeah, it was very cool. They were cool guys, really cool guys.
Right on. Good choice, right? Good, thanks.
All right, George, what's happening?
Well, my first pick is big name on the scene. First came to everyone's attention in Dream Theater.
Eric Sure. Oh man, love that guy.
Honestly, the Dream Theater album he's on, not one of my favorite Dream Theater albums, but I recognize the talent. And then when he got in Planet X, that band was just incredible. The composition, the playing, it was just phenomenal stuff. And unfortunately, they have they never made it official, but they don't do anything anymore. But he's done, I don't know, 7 or 8 solo albums, and all of them high quality. I mean, this one is my favorite, the most recent one.
So good, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, he always picks really good sidemen. I mean, it's hard to fault him at all. And he does a lot of guesting spots too. So he's a very visible player on the scene. And he's got his main patch is his patch. Nobody sounds like that. Like a lot of these other guys is copying Rudis's patch and stuff. Nobody sounds like Derek. So I picked Derek Turner.
Quite original.
Yeah. He kind of comes across like a guitar player almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all of his influences.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that latest solo album is great, and he's got another one cooking already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
With Simon Phillips.
With Simon Phillips.
Simon Phillips. Yeah.
They work together regularly. And
Shanker going to be on it.
Shanker. Yeah, he's got Shanker out playing on it. So I can't wait.
Nice.
All right. My number 5. Yeah, this was really hard. Especially like my top couple I think was fairly easy, but who was I going to pick for number 5 out of this larger list? I decided to go old school. I'm at number 5. Tony Banks from Genesis. I just, man, he's not the big flashy guy like some of my other picks are. He's not like this like crazy soloist like I'm sure a lot of the dudes we're going to mention. But there's something about his choice of tones and textures and utilizing all these different instruments to make this big wall of sound that just, really, when you think about it, was the heart and soul of those early Genesis albums, right? Using the Mellotron and the Hammond organ and eventually the different Moog synthesizers and the ARP and, the grand piano and electric piano, Fender Rhodes. I mean, using all that stuff. I mean, tracks like Watcher the Skies, The Fountain of Salmacis, and Supper's Ready, and Los Endos, and all these great songs are just like littered with his just fantastic playing. And I've always just really loved everything he's done. And
his compositional skills.
Yeah, and he's a great writer. Exactly. Yeah, and it's all about, he's the guy who wrote all those arrangements. And it's just incredible when you think about it. And he had to be on this list somewhere. So Tony Banks from Genesis, my number 5.
Excellent.
Definitely.
Excellent.
And he's not only he can play guitar, so he was able to help compose the whole thing arrangement. But not only that, I love the layers of music. Like he'll do one whole track with holding one hand if he had to for 4 minutes. Then the next one will be this little bit for 3 whole minutes. The last 2 minutes is something else. He never wanted us to get comfortable with what you heard, something coming by the next bar. I just found that that's what I like a lot about his songwriting, is that if you're coming back to that same passage of music, we're gonna add something else just to add a little flavor. So almost like if you had ADHD or short attention span, you're gonna come back and I'm gonna give you something that you didn't hear, that last time around. And Ken Hensley would do the same thing, just to add it to the song. So kept adding textures, and that's what he was more famous about. He wasn't a showboat, but he did show off by using all these layers and elements to, like a big orchestra. You got your violin section, you got the, whatever. That's what he did with the keyboard patches. He made it so big, and I agree with Pete. He definitely needed to be mentioned.
And when he did solo, it was always very impressive. But that was never his thing, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
All right, Chuck. What do you got?
Oh man, my number 4 is perhaps the quintessential Prog keyboardist, and the late Keith Emerson. I still miss him to this day. I remember my wife and I were on our way to Stamford, Connecticut, when I read that he had passed away. It put a damper on, or at least to me, on my weekends. So we had a great time, but his passing, is so tragically as well. You talk about a guy that still doesn't get the recognition for the virtuoso music that he put forth, and his keyboard playing is just out of this world. Great Showman. What's it? Songs that I love by him. Lucky Man. You know, as much as people get tired of hearing it, and so that keyboard solo, the Vogue solo, still catches my heart. You know, what's the title track to Trilogy? You know, perhaps it's my favorite ELP song. You know, Tarkus. You know, the Carnival 9 Suite, or just the entire Brain Salad Surgery. Keith Emerson is my number 4. The great Keith Emerson. Mm-hmm.
Great choice.
Awesome choice. Okay, next for me, I have to repeat what Dick, as was, you know, George had mentioned. You know, the guy is not only Dream Theater working at Planet X, but he, you know, the Black Country Communion, Sons of Apollo, and that's more him and Mike Foot. You know, that's really a brilliant. Like, he brings prog metal to that scene, and then able to go and be a hired gun for everybody from Kiss, Alice Cooper, Jack Wild, Slash, Yngwie Malmsteen. I think he played for Joe Bonamassa in the first place before he joined the band. So the guy is, you know, versatile, and I like how we all agree that this guy definitely needs to be mentioned. But he's still an underdog. I don't think enough people know him enough to the credit he should be, because he everybody that plays music know who he is. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So that's my number 4.
I'm glad you mentioned Sons of Apollo, because we forgot to before, and yeah, he's tremendous in that band.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that was my last concert to see, and he was phenomenal.
Yep. All right, George. George, nice haircut, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And tight.
George, what shirt are you wearing?
Up good.
It's a 5-piece band.
Oh, okay. Oh, I like that.
I was kind of hoping it wasn't like Five Finger Death Punch. But knowing you, that would never be the case.
My number 4 is Tigran Hamasian. A lot of the musicians really get into this guy's stuff. He's Armenian. First album, he was like 18 or 19 years old. I mean, he was a prodigy. It's like very heavy for piano music. It's very heavy. It's influenced by Meshuggah heavily, and people compare him to Animals as Leaders, but he predates Animals as Leaders by a few years. Yeah, the most recent record, he had Tosin from Animals as Leaders guest on it. It's he changes a lot of the records. Some are band, some are solo piano and stuff, but the best ones for me are the band lineups, especially this one and the most recent one, The Call Within. Really good stuff. Intricate, but he makes you feel like it's simple. You can, if you really dig into it, you're like, whoa, this is weird. But if you just listen, you can groove to it too. It's kind of a talent, but it comes from Armenian folk music supposedly, and then he just adapted it to jazz fusion. So Tigran Hamasian.
Tigran Hamasian. Oh, wow. That's a new name for me. I'm gonna have to check that guy out.
Kind of guy that will sell you. You watch one video and you'll either like it or you won't, but you'll be sold on it probably.
Okay, cool.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm always open for something new.
Right on. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. All right, my number 4, Carrie Meniere from Gentle Giant.
Yes. So underrated, man.
Man, is he ever. And he can play any style of music. I like on every Gentle Giant album, I think he uses every damn keyboard that he owns, right? So, you know, I mean, grand piano, electric piano, various different Moog and ARPs, Celeste, Mellotron, Hammond organ, you know.
It's also the vibraphone as well.
Vibraphones, clavinet. I mean, he plays little bass. He plays the cello. I mean, this guy is just like absolutely incredible. But man, never gets enough credit. There are so many fantastic keyboard textures on albums like Octopus and In a Glass House and Three Friends and Freehand, right? I mean, and
that title track.
Absolutely great, right? And he can be funky. He can, you know, play, you know, harder driving rock. He can play bluesy stuff. He can do like that kind of Renaissance-y type thing. Just so underrated. And again, you know, we've talked about it with a couple of guys so far, a guy who knows how to write great compositions. And a big part of the writing team on all those Gentle Giant albums, and so important, and a great soloist. but also great at textures and things like that. So I had to put him on this list. I love the band. I love his playing. And Carrie Meniere, number 4.
Excellent. How much I love that guy. Well, we'll go further with that. My number 3 has been already mentioned. Great Tony Banks from Genesis. My favorite band of all time. I just love most of, if not all of Tony Banks's compositions. And you can tell when he writes the songs in comparison to the songs that Mike Rutherford have written, the very few that Steve Hackett wrote, the even fewer that Peter Gabriel wrote. But you can tell when Tony Banks writes a song. And his composition work fits his style of keyboarding. Just another amazing keyboardist, one of those unsung guys that he might not be as flashy as most of his peers, but many of his peers can't write like him. And my number 3, Tony Banks from Genesis.
Right on. Well, I'm going to be repeating as well. Keith Emerson was my 3rd one. And this is the album I like to refer to because of the 3 fates, those 3 parts where he just does the piano, organ, and all the toys he brought in the Moog, which was a big deal in Lucky Man. But Take a Pebble, when I was a kid and I heard that for the first, and I say kid, I mean 17, and I think about how great that was and how the piano going stereo left to pan and back and forth. He was very adventurous and I liked it. But then I got to check out some footage. And this guy, like you said, Chuck, he's a showboat. He used to light the cannons and all that stuff and the Iowa Right Fest or the California Jam. I mean, I don't know too many keyboards that demand the attention unless you're a singer on the piano, like Elton John or something like that. He was a star. For being a 3 guys in a band, he had to do that job. And usually that's a job of a frontman. And then to think they had to design the keyboard so he can push it and it spring back to him, so he can,
and stab it.
Visual.
I was going to say, stick those knives in it as well, right?
Yes, and then he'll kick it, and then he'll kick it down. I mean, Jerry Lee Lewis did his thing with the piano. John Lord was known to rock the piano back and forth, but that guy would go behind and play it backwards behind the piano and not miss a cue. I mean, just phenomenal to watch. So he was a circus act as well as a great keyboardist. He was just fun to watch. And have you guys seen him perform before he passed?
No, I never got to see him perform. Never did.
Oh, okay. Pete has?
Yeah.
What year, buddy?
The last time I don't remember the year. It was in like the late 90s. They did that tour with it was Deep Purple, ELP, and Dream Theater.
Okay.
So
that must be a nice lineup.
Yeah, it was great. It was at Jones Beach in Long Island. 97. It was on the Falling Infinity tour. So whatever year that was for Dream Theater.
Wow. I just saw him by himself. Actually, they were just an evening with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, open air fest, and it was really great. And that was the same time, 96, I think it was. Yeah. And he still can play, but he was actually apprehensive. I think that's one of the things that disturbed him in his later years, that he couldn't keep up what he did in the early years, and I really took a toll on him.
Very depressed because he started having hand issues, and he was really, really depressed about it. And that's we know the whole story there. It's very, very sad.
Well, I'm glad you got to see him when you could.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely all right, George.
This one's kind of obscure.
Really?
It's a Japanese guy named Taku Yobuki.
No, I've heard of him.
He's in a avant prog band that I won't try and pronounce.
Good luck with that. Woo!
I'm not touching that one. It's kind of like Zappa, but like heavier, crazy. I like his solo albums. His recent solo album, my album of the year last year, probably my favorite album in the last 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years. Really, really good. Again, it's like prog fusion, kind of on the fence, heavy fusion. A who's who of both Japanese people and it's multinational. And And then some of his earlier stuff leans more like instrumental Kansas stuff. So he's got a very big range, and he composes for video games. He did the Gran Turismo video game franchise, I guess. But for me, the solo albums are where it's at. Taku Yobuki.
Cool. Another name I hadn't heard before.
I heard of the band Koenji. Oh, let me not butcher it. I can imagine getting roasted.
There you go. That's it right there. That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Just recently checked them out, and it's if you can take weird vocals, then it's really cool. The vocals are a bit much.
Are they in Japanese too?
It's in one of those fake languages like
oh no way!
Yes, like
oh, yeah. I won't even bother.
That's why I heard of them.
Sorry, no Kobayan for me. I mean, there's a million languages on this planet. Why do you got to make up a new one? All right, my top three. Here's where I get a little somber. My top three are no longer with us, and it pains me for all three of them. My number three is the one that left us really recently, and I miss him every day. Chick Corea.
Yes.
I mean, the guy, had such an illustrious career. I had the pleasure of seeing him live numerous times, and whether it be the classic Return to Forever stuff, the many duets he did with all sorts of people, or the wonderful electric band, the guy was just amazing. He could sit down at a piano and play the most majestic classical style jazz. He could do stuff that's close to prog rock. He could do the burn-in fusion. He can do like a lighter style of fusion that's got a lot of pop influences. The guy could do everything, and played every single keyboard out there, and was just so amazing, and a great songwriter and soloist. Chick Corea is my number three. Had to be.
He was brilliant, man. Saw him with Return to Forever, and I also got to see him with the Electric Band back in 1990, if I'm not mistaken, 89 or 90.
That's a great time to see them.
Yeah, the Blue Note. When they were fantastic, man. Just a class act band. Very expensive, but I still enjoyed it.
That's important.
Chick Corea is my number two as well. So I'm actually just picking off of what Brother Pete has mentioned. Just one of these amazing musicians. His stuff during the 70s. Actually, no, all throughout his entire career. He was a class act as a jazz pianist with Roy Hayes and Miroslav Vitas. Then he went over to Miles Davis and was one of the progenitors to what would be called jazz rock fusion. And then the stuff that he did with Stan Getz, which would become Return to Forever later. Just an amazing musician, man. He also played a lot of Latin-based music. With his stuff, just one of so many great songs by him. After the Cosmic Rain, on him to the Seventh Galaxy. Spain is probably his most popular song. And then Song to the Pharaoh Kings. That's just absolute prog right there. Just Chick Corea. Just sad to see that he had passed away so suddenly from his illness that he just found out like a few weeks beforehand, and he wound up passing away. Oh man, well, he's my number two, Chick Corea.
Good pick.
Memory of a good cat. Okay, number two. Well, first time I think it's been brought up. Jordan Rudess is my number two guy.
Excellent.
I first this Liquid Tension Experiment was the first time I knew about him, and of course he would become in Dream Theater. But as Mike Portner would depart, he really picked it up a lot more on the production. I mean, not the production, but just more orchestration started coming in. I'm not to say he didn't do it with Mike there. I just find that he just picked up that end of the game a little bit more. And so maybe just means more people writing, contributing. I know John does a lot of it. But I just think that guy's a phenomenal player. I mean, he goes and shows where when it's his turn to play, he doesn't go there pre-planned. He just improvises, and he's so awesome that no matter what he touches, he's going to be good and entertaining and breathtaking for people to watch. He really brings that light and shade that Led Zeppelin used to talk about, or very heavy and humble on your right. He brings that heaviness and lightness to the band. They can go from bombastic and being down where you can listen the dynamic so much that he can make, you know, little whistles and little sounds that you want to listen. The guy's very creative. His best work is really the piano, I think. He makes it work in metal, which most people wouldn't even do. They always try to plug in an amplifier, make it sound more guitar. He keeps a lot of those instruments to the true presets, and he knows how to work it in. And man, you really got your work cut out for you. Well, he has that chart to follow. He won't make a mistake. He won't take a chance and not have that thing dead on like the album. And that's something about his professionalism. And I think he's a cool cat, you know, and I think he's a character in that band that is fun to watch on stage. And I love the way he does his keyboard stance, so everybody gets a good shot at him. You know, it's almost like the band used to rotate around the stage, so everybody got a shot at him. You get that? And then also, what I like is when he went out and go solo with, I mean, it's a novelty thing. I think Jeff Beck, Jan Hammer used to do that quite a bit. But he did it in a way that looked metal, and it looked great for the Dream Theater audience. So the guy is a cool cat, and I would like to meet him one day. But I've seen him many times in concert, and he never disappoints. Number 2.
Could be, I don't know, out of all the kind of current crop, could be the most talented of all of them, perhaps. There are times, though, that I don't like his synth sounds.
Yeah.
And sometimes I almost rather hear him on piano.
Yeah, same thing. But he's a great guy. I love his stories of going to concerts during the 70s. If you've ever read anything about them, I remember one of the stories that he spoke about going to see Van de Graaff Generator, and their only tour here during the 70s. In Manhattan somewhere. I forgot what it was, but he was one of the few people that actually went there, and he just spoke very highly of them. It's like that was like a mystical thing for him, seeing Van de Graaff Generator. I like him, man. Very nice guy. Nice pick.
I did get to meet him on Systematic Chaos tour. We had backstage passes, and the only guy from the band that showed up was Jordan. So people were dominating his time, but he finally got my second to go up there, and I told him, I always wanted to cover Sound Chaser. You took my perfect cover. Like, yeah, how did I do? So it was great. All right. Can't argue with that.
Yep. It sounded right at home there, right? Yep.
So you met him, right, Peter? So
I never met Jordan, actually.
No. Oh, okay.
No,
never met him.
I'm surprised because I know you've seen Dream Theater more than anybody. So I assumed you might have had one time.
No, I never. I've only gotten to meet in person. You know, I met John and Mike. That's it. I never got to meet you guys. Someday.
Okay. Oh yeah, it would happen. You're doing the right thing, buddy.
There you go.
All right. And number 2, Hiromi. She's just a ball of energy. Been around since 2003. Often working in trio, but for a couple albums here, this is my favorite one. This is a quartet with Dave Fushinsky. For the last 10 years, she's been working with Simon Phillips and Anthony Jackson as a constant rhythm section, but Anthony's in assisted living now, so I'm not sure what she's going to do. But this is just high energy, mostly piano. She plays a little bit of the Nord, but she mostly sticks to piano. Great composer, just hardly any softy stuff. It's mostly, gets you moving. So if that's your kind of thing, Hiromi, what's your time?
All right, George.
Okay, George.
I didn't expect the softy to come out there and hurt.
Yes.
I forgot it for Yobuki.
Oh man.
I don't know if you caught it, but I threw it out last night during the Hudson Valley Squares. I don't that was for you, my man. All right. My number 2 is Eddie Jobson. No, it's not. Sorry, Anthony.
I love to put one in
I
there.
love Eddie, but it's not making my top 5. Keith Emerson, the late Keith Emerson. Yeah, I mean, you guys have all said everything I would say. An amazing, amazing player, amazing showman. There are times where I think he was one of the greatest, well, not the greatest, but one of the greatest Hammond organ players ever. I mean, that guy, as he's well known for being the pioneer on the Moog synthesizer, but man, you put him in front of a Hammond organ, that guy just absolutely burns. I mean, listen to Tarkus for crying out loud.
Yep.
Yeah, this guy, when you talk about one of the best soloists out of everybody we're talking about, this guy was the shit. And yeah, I mean, so many great albums. I mean, God, the first album is so great. I love the Tarkus title track, Brain Salad Surgery. The whole thing is just amazing. Trilogy is great. How about that Emerson, Lake and Powell album? I mean, so many great classic songs. Such a great player and showman. Yeah, Keith Emerson had to be on this list. There were 2 guys who I think are the prototypical kind of prog era keyboard players, and I struggled with. I knew one of the 2 had to be on here. And then I was like, well, I have some other guys I want to fit on here. And the second guy who's not going to make my top 5, I left off. And there's probably a reason for that. I just think that I always enjoyed Keith's playing a little bit more. And we'll probably, I think Chuck knows exactly who I'm talking about here. But Keith Emerson, number 2 for me. And back to Chuck for number 1.
Oh, man. Well, my number 1 is perhaps the most organic synthesizer player that ever lived. What's that? Another one that's been dearly departed for quite some time, and the late great Joseph Zawano, from Weather Report, and Miles Davis. This guy was people don't they always think about his compositions, but his work as a soloist was just unbelievable as well. When you get to play with Wayne Shorter for basically most of your musical career, you have to be good, and he always said that Wayne Shorter actually upped this game and just went further, just one of those innovative souls that just continue to get better with each album, sometimes to the point where he dominated. Badia from Tailspinning, Haranu from Black Market, and the Boogie Woogie Waltz from Sweet Nighter. That's just a few of the great songs that he had throughout that entire run with Weather Report. And one of those musicians that I miss dearly as well. Never got to see him. I wanted to see him with Zawano Syndicate or Weather Update, but never got to see them live. Same, sadly. Joseph Zawano, my number 1.
Great pick. And, George and I spoke to Scott Henderson, and he told us flat out that Joe Zawano was the greatest musician he ever played with in his life.
Well, he was a tough guy, very, very tough guy. The guy could write, but he also was very demanding, especially on his percussionists,
Yep. Great choice.
Joseph Zawano.
Great choice.
Great stuff.
All right, Rick, you're number 1.
Number 1 for me, I think he's been number 1 for a long time. And I think it's not only from the solo record, but the album that, the band that really got his mark. Even though he's known from being in the band called the Straub, but he did join the Yes family, and I'm talking about Mr. Wakeman. And I love his solo stuff as well. I listened to it quite a bit, Journey to Center of the Earth, or Henry, the wives of King Henry VIII or whatever. Yeah, something like that. And the latest one,
Too many
wives.
wives.
Was it Red Planet? So many. But the ones that I try to turn people on is with the band, of course, yes, whether Closer to the Edge or Going to the One or something like that. But I do appreciate his solo stuff, and it's like listening to a motion picture soundtrack kind of movie. You get all kinds of visuals, and it's different all the time. And let the imagination go wild. And of course, he's always had some special guests here and there. So Rick Wakeman, I always think he's brilliant. I'm glad I got to see him play with the lineup, the classic lineup as we know, yes. I suppose, well, without Poop Poop, but it was with Alan White when they did a 35-year anniversary, and I've seen him a couple of times since then. But the brother is not only great at the keyboard and everything else, but he had such a reputation that everybody would hire him to play on the album, whether it's Black Sabbath or the Black Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and David Bowie would hire him. He got his hands fingerprints in all kinds of albums that a lot of people don't know. Or he'd be going up and help keyboardists that he'd been talking about set up their sound, help you knowing that technology, he would share that wealth of knowledge. And he was also a great host of the TV show, interviews on rock stars, and you see some of the things that he shares a lot of good stories. And so
Hilarious.
I like the guy. I think he's fantastic. He played with the Warhorse. He played with so many good people. But my favorite work is in Yes, and it was too bad it was kind of short-lived. But for what it was worth, that's the best work, and that's why he's always been that go-to guy. Even though some bands had, sometimes the lineup changed where they had keyboardists that have been there longer than he has in the band. But he's the one that everybody remembers,
Well, his stuff with the Straubs was awesome too, man. Just amazing stuff with Straubs.
Doesn't he have like 50 solo albums or something like that?
Yeah. You can't even
I don't
catch
have
him.
them all. That's the truth.
Someone once said to me, when are you going to rank the Rick Wakeman solo albums? I'm like,
Please.
kidding me? I don't even know how many there are. I haven't.
That's like doing a Frank Zappa show.
I'll give you my top 5 or 10.
That's it.
Yes, I could do that.
All right, George, I think I know who your number 1 is.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I hate to copy you guys, but I'll say Chick Corea. I mean, you can play anything, but it's more of the. I think he's unmatched for musicality and mostly composition. The guy's written more great songs, in my opinion, than any other composer. And keyboardists should probably. It's a more composing instrument than any other instrument, it seems like, and he just has endless supply of great songs, and he mentored all these guys. He created all these other band leaders. He just had an incredible career. So Chick Corea.
Yep.
All love him, man.
Yeah.
All love and miss him.
Yep. All right, my number 1. I think most people know how much I love Hammond organ players. I think most people know how much I love a band called Deep Purple. John Lord, ladies and gentlemen. Another guy that I miss terribly. And, he was like the elder statesman for a while. And then, he left us due to the dreaded cancer. But man, you got to be a serious player when you can stack up right alongside guys like Richie Blackmore and Steve Morse and Tommy Bolin. And just so many of those classic Deep Purple tracks are not only important and powerful because of those guitar players and those riffs or those crazy, solos and things. But man, John was right there in the mix of everything, helping play the riffs. Speedy, fast Hammond organ solos, like classically inspired. Him and Blackmore going back and forth. I mean, just some classic stuff. And there are times, sometimes, I love him just as much for, I'm at the opening to Knocking at Your Back Door or Perfect Strangers, right? As I like him for those, wild classical runs that he does in a lot of those old 70s songs. So, just miss him to death. Such a just larger than life sound. And, there may be other guys that I've talked about and we've talked about who maybe from a pure talent perspective might be able to do a lot more cool things. But sometimes when it comes down to it, the basics are pretty damn good too. And I think that John Lord just kind of did all those things right. And, when I think of Hammond organ guys, he's the guy.
Yep, he's the guy, man. Oh,
you were saying that when other guys do, actually, he is cool. Everything about him is cool. His persona is cool. The way he looks is cool. His imagery, the way he plays was just always enough. Never too much. Never, okay, buddy, are you done yet? Never that. He's always just what you need. I think he's always cool. In fact, I think that makes it that no one can be bored because he just enough. And he always knew how to entertain people with jingles that they know. Every show, you're going to get a piece of Beethoven or Louis Louis or whatever he thought on the moment, boogie woogie on the fly. You always have that little moment where he just jammed, and he did it cool. He made Beethoven cool on a hard rock concert. You know what I mean? Like the guy is cool.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
no matter what.
He was soulful too. That's the thing.
Yes.
What's that? You don't think of too many rock musicians that are soulful, but he had a nice soulful tone to his.
Yeah.
Just love the guy, man. What an amazing keyboardist, man. R.I.P. man.
The coolness, he would wear. I was watching a Deep Purple DVD from a show in Poland, 1996, the other night, and he's got his sunglasses on, he's got his hair back. He's just sitting there hunched over the Hammond, right? And at one point, Steve Morse comes up, and the two of them are trading off some stuff, and I'm like, oh man! And you can look at this huge smile on Morse's face because he's sitting there jamming with a legend, right? And Morse, as he said, in fact, he told me when I interviewed him last year, he said that one of his greatest thrills was to play alongside John Lord every night. And that was, one of the reasons why he wanted to join that band, is to be, to have that exposure to play with such a great musician like John Lord. So.
Yeah, and he was so cool and recognizable that people knew when you look at the Whitesnake Ready and Willing album, you knew that was him.
He is, right?
Signature. That's who he is. And
no matter what glasses, right?
Yeah. But it doesn't matter what Mark 1, he was brilliant in Mark 1, and brilliant in Mark 2. Had to step up his games with that kind of movement. Then when they got into a little bit of the boogie and a little bit of that, with Mark 3, with a little more fun, he fit like a glove. He knew how to adapt to all that trend that the guys he was working with. He hold his own, and I can imagine Steve Morse being recognized as this guy. I mean, he's from Drifty Dread. That's hard to be impressed, right? Coming from a guy like Steve, and John Lord can blow him away. That goes to show you just how talented he really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good choice.
Right. I know we all got some honorable mentions, so Chuck, you want to rattle a couple names off here?
All right. I had a whole bunch of other ones, but the honorable mentions that I did have was Rick Wakeman. What's his stuff with Yes, and Straubs. That's one of the things that I wanted to put in there. Lonnie Liston Smith. Not too many people speak about him, but he's another great Moog synthesizer, keyboardist, and also a great organist as well. And then one that no one's mentioned, and the great John Hammer. Another one of those guys that, those three right there, you have three great musicians, John Hammer. Those are my honorable mentions right there.
Cool. Good choice. Rick, how about you?
Well, John Lord was number 6, and Don Ailey, playing now, is number 7. And then I had Tony Kaye from the original Yes and Badger. It's a good album to get if you have that. That's a great performance. John Anderson produced this, by the way. It's kind of interesting. Live album for first record. Another one I mentioned is John Hocking from Straub, who played in Renaissance and Spooky Truth. Ken Hensley, obviously, for me. And I think that Uriah Heep, right? And not only because in these solo records, but even an album like this one, he did a lot of stuff, and he was very busy, and he made it musical. But he was showing off, but he did it in a way that is song structured. Another one, Tony Banks, which is already mentioned, from Camel, Peter Boden. Yeah, he's fantastic. That whole period of my favorite 3 or 4 albums that the Camel did, he was a very important signature part. And I'd like to mention, if you don't mind, I know it's not Prog too much, but John Paul Jones, every time he touched the keyboard, he brought Prog to the table a lot of times. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't play piano and just boogie woogie, whatever, but for the most part, if he brought organ or a mellotron, you had a big epic, like In the Light, Kazmir, or if you look at Into the Outdoor, when Jimmy Page wasn't in his finest hour because of the things he was dealing with, he picked up that whole album. It's very heavy, keyboard oriented. And you know what? I've been thinking about this before the show started. I think you and I, all of us, have one time brought up albums that have had some proggy element. It's usually the keyboard that brings that in, right? And if you think about Styx, or if you think about some of the bands that we like, or even Angel. If you look at some of that proggy moment, the Angel,
That first
that
album.
keyboard bringing that keyboard player and bring that creativity that the guitars can't take you. And I think that that's where keyboard do help that prog movement. There's no question about it.
Yep. Good points. Absolutely.
Good one, George.
Well, thanks for the invitation. I'm glad I got to be a part of it. Anthony asked me to help him out, and good to see my Prog brothers of the A-team.
There you
Thanks,
go.
Rick. Thanks, Rick.
Glad you can make it. George, you got a couple extras?
Yeah, I had a couple great rock classical players, Tony Mcalpine and Vitaly Krai, fantastic players. Rick Wakeman I also had, and one of the best players, young players around right now, a guy named Jesus Molina, a jazz fusion player, young kid, phenomenal. He's a comer.
Great ones out there. I had Wakeman. Wakeman was the guy I was talking about before.
I figured it out.
Yeah, we kind of figured
I love Wakeman. I love him. But I just, for me, he's just underneath the guys I mentioned. Jan Hammer is right up there as well. I had Zawano, I had Herbie Hancock, I had Ken Hensley, Derek Sherinian, Eric Norlander.
Eric Norlander.
One of the best of the new breed.
I'm surprised that George didn't mention him.
Yeah, Norlander's amazing. Norlander's amazing. And then I had these two guys because I kind of think of them together because they make a great team. Carrie Livgren and Steve Walsh.
Yes. Very underrated, both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very underrated.
Rick mentioned Styx before. Dennis DeYoung, fine player. And the last guy, you mentioned Angel, Greg Giuffria is tremendous. Tremendous.
Right on.
So many other fusion guys I could have mentioned. There's a million great fusion keyboard players out there. Just so many.
Oh.
But yeah, that I figured we could fill up 3 shows doing it.
Well, we gave everybody a pretty good dose of a lot of different bands and music around, and I think that we got enough that people without, if you haven't heard it, they've got to seek it out because it's amazing playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So there you have it, everybody. So in the comments below, name some of your favorite prog and prog metal and fusion keyboard players. There's a ton of them, so there's no right or wrong answers here. Curious to see what additional guys everybody comes up with, or gals, because there are a lot of female players as well. So and I want to thank George and Rick and Chuck for bringing their A games tonight, coming up with some great choices and some cool examples of their favorites. There you got the mug right there. What's in that mug tonight?
Just H2O water, my friend.
Oh, okay. Hey, speaking of, there he is.
There he goes.
Nice.
There he is.
Another guy with a distinctive mustache.
Yes, indeed. So there you have it, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube. All
the damn time.
Upcoming program. We got each and every day this month. We've got classic album rewind. So stay tuned for that tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so that's new product review day. I've got some like 4 or 5 new reviews for you guys tomorrow, including the new Black Sabbath Sabotage box set. There it is. New Flotsam and Jetsam, brand new archival live can recording. We got new Big Train. We got new Nat Sylvan, all sorts of great stuff. So hopefully I can get to all that first thing tomorrow morning. Thursday is the Monsters Den, which is our Alfred Hitchcock ranking day. That's coming Thursday. Friday morning at the Funhouse with none other than Martin Popoff. Lynn Versace also is going to be on the show Thursday night. We are going to be ranking the Steve Morse Band catalog, as well as a kind of a fun show that was just Lynn and I decided to do, top 10 songs of ABBA. And then I'm going to announce it now because it just got signed and sealed a couple hours ago. We will have on Sea of Tranquility Thursday, none other than Steve Lukather.
Oh, excellent.
Nice.
I am stoked to talk to Steve. So that is coming up Thursday. That and a whole lot more here on the channel. So thanks for watching, everybody. For George, Rick, and Chuck, I am Pete. Have a good one, everybody. And see you next Tuesday on In the Prog Seat. Bye-bye.
Take care.